Okay.
All right, well, welcome. We are, what is this? A few online and a few in person, and I think that's gonna be great and work out well for the kind of format we have planned for this evening. This is our third and final part of our climate change series. And Julie's been so gracious with so many resources and thoughts and organizing ideas of how to plan this series out. So many thanks to you for the way your brain works and your patience.
Yeah, thank you for letting me do it.
How we started this in September was to begin with the conversation of an overlook. What does this look like, this idea of climate change? What's the terminology we use? What are some statistics? And we did a great job of doing that. And then in October, we took a look at it as a social justice topic. And so how does that get interwoven? You know, what are the intimate ways that different demographics and different peoples and different countries face and not just deal with, but have to cope with and survive through the effects of climate change, especially as it comes out of, you know, other countries that they're thousands of miles away from because of the way that our Earth works and moves. But this evening, we're going to have a little bit more conversation following some information about ideas of, you know, taking a look at the more global, right? This is the 30,000 foot picture, right? What's the big thing that needs to happen? And then kind of bringing it down to that 10,000 foot view, right? That's where that local, what can we do? What are things that we are doing? What are things that will make a difference in our own community, but possibly can impact a larger breadth of the area? So allow me to pray us in, and then I'll invite Julie to carry us forward. Creator, you have called us to an act of co-creation. Well, we have not always been great at that. We've been learning, we've been chewing on some difficult, challenging ideas of where we have come from and where we're going, not only as this species, but what we are doing to all the species. Create in us an openness, an invitation to do something, to discover how we can act, what we can do. Give us the motivation and inspiration to do differently, So be with us in this conversation. May we ask the difficult questions, may we chew on the difficult and challenging asks of us, and may we deeply internalize it so that we don't lose it as we walk out the door, but we carry it with us. We ask this in your name. Amen. All right.
Okay. If you do me a favor and do like a 30-minute time, let me know in 30 minutes, so that, because I don't have time for people to discuss. So then I get going. And the other thing is, if there's any questions or anything in the chat, if one of you look at that, because if I start sharing my screen, I can't see them.
Right, actually, that's a good comment. If you are worshiping, here I am on Sundays. If you are with us remotely at home, the best indicator is if you have your virtual hand raised, or you take your literal hand and you wave it back and forth. Sometimes the subtlety of this is not captured. It's a little hard to hear you, Julie, so if you just project a little bit more, but it should pick it up, but yeah.
Yeah, and we have a real small group here, so if we were to ignore you, you could always unmute and just, you know, shout out. So, in preparation for this, I was looking through this climate simulator that I want to show you today, and I happened to get an email right before that talked about how we communicate about climate change and how they did a survey worldwide, and what people wanted to hear was not climate used as an adjective. They wanted to hear people talk like humans. So I assume that means that they didn't want them talking like scientists, which I'm not a scientist, I'm not a climate scientist. And they also felt that 1.5 degrees, it didn't have any meaning for them. So, here I am going to present something with the climate simulator where we're gonna play with trying to keep us so that we don't go too far above, you know, we get as close to staying at 1.5 or below 2 as possible. So I'm like, oh no, this is, this is the foundation of one of the things that we're gonna be talking about tonight. So I wanted to go back and try and give that 1.5 some meaning, because when they did this survey, they were asked, well, what do you think the United Nations report is saying about what is a safe temperature? And they came up with 3.5 degrees centigrade. So there's really is a misunderstanding if we're at all thinking that that's going to be a safe target. So some of us have been here over the 3 times. I think we've mentioned it in one of them. What are we at now? If we're trying to stay and not get above 1.5, what are we at now? Anybody remember? You guys that have been here the whole time, I know.
It's close.
Well, it is pretty close. We're just below 1.2.
Yeah.
And this is from, if we looked at pre-industrial, like they started tracking this in 1880. And the most significant, the most of this warming has happened since 1975. So we are close to that 1.5, and if that has no meaning, what we need to look at it is not in degrees, but as in impacts. And every little bit of warming carries with it more impacts. And so if people don't want to think about the degrees, think about extreme weather events and impacts on people losing their homes. The 1.5 was established at the Paris Accords with the countries from the Oceania area really firmly demanding it, because if we get to 2, they don't have homes. These islands that are small atoll islands, they disappear. So I just want to kind of establish that as something that we can think about. The 1.5 isn't something, you know, just arbitrary. It is something that scientists have said, okay, if we can keep it here, we can not have some of those extreme events happen. You know, there'll be less. We're still, you know, we're already experiencing it, and we're not even at 1.2. So, but the more we go over, the more of a problem it is. So, what I want to do today is I'm going to share my screen. I want to show you a tool that is created by Climate Interactive, which is a climate change think tank, and MIT Sloan. There's a couple of other groups involved, but those are the main 2. And if you're at home, I don't know how this works, but I would suggest you exit out, you know, push the minus button in the view thing so that you don't see anything but the screen, climate simulator. So this simulator was developed to give a quick way for people discussing policies about what could help us control climate change. And they could throw out a policy idea and you could put it in the simulator and actually see how effective it is. And so that's an important tool. They use this in lobbying with Congress. They've used it all over the world. There's, it's now in 21 different languages. They train people, there's free training. This is all free. I went through the training, and so that's why I had to do a couple of practice sessions before I talked to you guys. So that's why Krista has seen it already. But there's more than 100 graphs here. It's very rich in the information that you can get from it. So I want to show you some of that today, but we're definitely not going to dive into all that it can do, but we just want to experiment. a little bit with it. So, what we can do is, let's say, that we took one idea, and just to throw out an idea, that was presented with the last administration, was to plant 1 trillion trees. What kind of effect would that have? And here we have, well, let's go through what these two main graphs are.
Yeah.
These are the global sources of primary energy, and it shows it from 2000 to what's projected at 2100. And so the bottom one is coal, then we have oil and gas, and then renewables. You see how that's getting bigger? Why do you think that is getting bigger? Solar, wind, hydrogen, why is that?
Because
We're
people
moving.
are putting them on their houses.
And what's driving that?
Yeah, right.
What's driving that besides hopefully the idea of helping to stop climate change?
There's
Yeah.
money in it.
Well, it's cheaper. It's become the cheapest.
Right.
Solar right now is the cheapest form of energy in the United States. So before, when, 30 years ago, this graph wouldn't look like this because it wasn't as cheap as it is now. The pink is bioenergy, like using corn or sugarcane for fuel, or maybe peat.
But where is that used? Where do we see that?
Well, some industries actually use corn-based fuel, and there's a lot of places use wood for burning, keeping warm. A lot of countries, peat moss is used, and that's a real, that's a carbon sink. If we could keep it, as a peat moss instead of burning it and emitting.
For a while, there was a power plant between here and El Centro that burned cow manure
Yeah.
and created electricity.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's pretty bio.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was close to the stockyards.
And biofuel still is usually emitting carbon also. It might not be as much as the other traditional fossil fuels, but.
So
And-
all of those sources are renewables, the only ones that are not emitting carbon.
Those are the ones that are the cleanest, yes. There's nuclear up
Yeah.
here, that very thin line is nuclear. So this is the projection if we continue as we are. This here is the greenhouse gas emissions. If we go up here, there's all these little, you can show, you can see this dot right here is the pledges that the countries have made. It's the nationally determined contributions. And they have to do that every 5 years. They have to report on their progress towards those goals. And these would be the goals for 2030. And it looks right now, if we're doing if we're on course and just continuing as is, we're gonna miss those goals. One kind of hopeful thing is that if you go back and you look at an En-ROADS presentation, they're on YouTube. There's tons of them out there if you want to see some. You'll see the number is at, I think it's 4.1. So since we've been doing En-ROADS, they've brought down the temperature to 3.3. They update this monthly, but they do major updates yearly, and they take all the data out there. All of this is online if you want to know how they do this, but they have updated to reflect that we are on a better path. We're lower than it was 4 years ago. And also I did my training last spring and we were at 3.6. So we've gone down to 3.3 just in that little bit.
What did you say the first one was?
I think it was 4.1. It's right around there. I just watched one from like 4 years ago. I was like, oh, cool.
Wow.
So that's, it looks, when you see this, it can look a little overwhelming, but I think those are good news. And also, it's important to remember when we're playing with this, that this is a global model. So it's assuming when we take one of these actions, that that action is done globally. There's a way to figure out maybe a percentage of people, of countries doing it and reflect that in here. But it's a global model. And I think I showed this to some people on Thursday, and one person came away more discouraged, and I don't know. Because she said, well, it's global. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, I think you have to remember that we all, you know, if you remember from the last two sessions, who's contributed the most? You know, the United States historically has contributed the most. So if we can take these actions, you know, we're one of the biggest, we'll have the biggest impact.
Yeah.
You know, you take us versus one of these atoll countries like the Marshall Islands, you know, if they took the same action, it's not going to have as big an impact. So maybe they don't take the action and we do. And even California, what is it now, the sixth largest economy in the world? So all that we're doing in California, you know, that's got a bigger action than Tahiti or something, you know.
And it influences.
Right.
Hmm.
It influences everybody.
When you say that, we're one of the US is putting out the most stuff, is that adjusted for population?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Because obviously those little
Yeah,
islands.
I think it is a per capita.
is per
But,
capita.
Now that's historically, and, you know, I have some charts that we could look at if I had them right at my fingertips, but, now it's China that's the biggest, emitter, and we're, I think third, maybe behind India.
We've made it clear it's free.
Yeah, we're going in the right direction, but we could definitely be doing much more.
But look at that, you've got those population bases, China,
Mhm.
India,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
it's not
And if-
Finland.
If you're watching the news and seeing what's happening in India right now as far as particulate pollution, it's really bad. And
Yeah.
it's because of the cold, you know, when it gets colder, it keeps the pollutants down. And they burn, this is the time of year where they burn crops. And also, the festival, the Diwali festival, all those, fireworks and things. So, okay, so we were talking about, planting 1 trillion trees. So I just wanted to talk, just do one lever at a time or one slider, so you can kind of see what might happen if we took that one action. What do you think will happen if we planted 1 trillion trees? How far, when I say what would happen, what would happen to this number? Would it go, how far down would it go? Not much, like what? 110. 110?
I think you said that one time, it wasn't gonna be
Oh,
a whole lot of it.
Okay,
It depends
so
on where the
it's
trees
pretty.
are.
yeah, well, okay, so let's move the afforestation, that's, planting trees, and we're gonna move it over as far as possible. I don't wanna spend a lot of time on this, so I'm,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, 110. We,
Collect your prize on the way.
So, you know, that's something that is a positive thing, but it's not gonna save us 1 trillion trees. And if we wanted to understand why not, we can look here, and it gives you information about the movement, the, idea, the afforestation, reforestation. And then you can go to this information button and you really get you get examples of this would include incentives and funding to identify available land, plant trees, manage forests, and it gives you the impacts. So what do you think, what are some of the issues of why this isn't making a bigger difference? This might help us over here. If we look at, we start in 2023, when does anything really get going? Yeah. So you start planting these little trees, you know, in 10 years, and they're not going to be real carbon sinks to begin with. It takes time And we want to see the biggest impact in the next few years in 2030, because after that, we've already hit this high, this temperature high, and it doesn't turn around very quickly. You probably heard the analogy of the great ocean liner. You're trying to move it. It takes a real long time to stop and to turn, and that's what would be happening here. If we keep on emitting and then we try and, stop it, the effects of it are gonna go on for some time. So, we're trying to do as much as we can now. So this is a big part of it. Another part of it is, where do you get the land to plant 1 trillion trees? We can look at it in hectares, but I don't know if that's very meaningful for you. That's less meaningful to me than 1.5 degrees. It will take at least 854 million hectares, and that's 2.5 Indias. So where do we have that, land? We would probably be taking it away from cropland and things that, is needed.
And it takes water.
Yes, it takes water. And also, if any of you have ever lived in places where they do clear cutting, that's sometimes what might be happening with this afforestation is you're planting these same trees, you get monocultures, and that's not the best. We don't want that kind of forest where all the trees are the same and they're all spaced out. They're more susceptible to disease. So there's some problems with the trillion trees. Okay, so we got us to 3.2 though. What could we do to possibly get us at least below 2? What do you think we should try? We have, I have some plants over here. Okay, we need to stop oil. What could we do to stop oil?
We could improve mass transit.
Okay, we could improve. Okay, so that would be energy efficiency in transportation. So let's bring that up. And that would include, trying to encourage people to bike, so we're down to 3.1.
Electrification.
Okay, and electrifying, so more EVs, more electric bikes. The school buses are being electrified, so.
The state buses are being electrified.
Yeah.
It is electrified.
So, okay, so those are all good things. What about, we right now globally, we spend 8 trillion, is that right?
No.
Oh, okay. I really need to speed up.
Measuring how much of the temperature goes.
We spend globally about $8 trillion subsidizing, giving money to the fossil fuel companies. What if we cut that down? Yeah. So let's.
Chris was saying reduce methane.
Okay, that's good, Krista. Let's tax oil. Let's get, oil, and how about coal? Right?
Could we eat less meat?
And you see, as we do these things, we see this coming down, right?
Yeah.
But we also see the green getting bigger, the renewables are getting bigger, because when oil and coal cost more, what happens? We're not gonna be using them as much, right?
Sam is saying the carbon price, increase the carbon.
Okay, that's good. Let's do, get over to methane. Krista said methane. Krista, do you wanna tell us why this is going down so much? If we, can get, cap some methane and not have it leaking all over, what?
So what are the?
I was gonna suggest that it's since it's a more damaging greenhouse gas even than the carbon that
Steve was really paying attention. I like that. Good job, Chris. It's 80 times more powerful than CO2 in its impact on holding in heat. But it doesn't last as long. So it has more of an impact in a shorter amount of time. So, and it's also one that's, Yes, eat less beef and have a, more vegetarian diet. And methane is also found in natural gas.
Mhm.
It's, one of the key parts of natural gas, which there is also, a real push to start calling that fossil gas. Because people think natural gas, that can't be harmful, right? So, yeah, so if we can do both of those things and really work on the methane, right away, and this is something that's included in Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. He has money set aside to cap, wells, the blue flame that's coming, that's methane. And it's just, going out into the atmosphere. And there, has been new satellites developed that this is what they do, is find oil and gas, places where they're emitting carbon and methane that maybe they're not telling people about. They're, I know, imagine that happening, but,
Imagine it.
so they can maybe target those people and, hold them responsible and have them.
Is it damaging when methane is released as a gas? Or is it damaging when they're burning it, like when you see they're like burning off
It's,
excess?
it's
the same.
happening, yeah. And methane is also in your gas stoves, in our homes, if we can.
Electric.
Our
Yeah.
electric dryers, our gas
Right.
dryers.
Mhm.
Well, when they're burning it's converted to CO2. So it's burning is oxidation, and that's the adding of the oxygen molecule
Right, okay.
on the carbon. So, see, the methane has a big impact, but more short-lived than CO2. And flaring it, burning it off, is just the normal CO2 effect that we're worried about for all of our.
Thank you for explaining that. She's a biology professor. Helpful.
I went to God school, so.
But that is an easy capture. The ones that, the flares, that's a very easy, the technology is there, it's fairly inexpensive to do it somewhere where it is captured.
But then when it's captured, what do we do with it?
Well, there's different things they do with it. In that case, I think they bring it back into the whole process. It's a cyclical.
Emitted at that spot.
Yeah. So, also, just to take a look at one of these things, because I want you to know that this is out there, is this, when you look under the information they give you, it's helpful to see what co-benefits there are. What other things can this help? So, if we were to reduce methane, sustainable and plant-based agriculture produces more food with fewer resources, which increases food security. Reducing methane leakage from natural gas systems can save money. So, it's nice to see they've got this all in here for you. And then there's equity considerations, so that if this is impacting, like here, for example, rice paddies, a large methane contributor, produce a main dietary staple for many countries. So that's something that would have to be, factored in, how you can have people still have their staple food, but produce less methane. And they are working on that with the rice production. Anyway, so just if there was a question that you wanted to understand something more thoroughly, they give you so much information. And there's also a whole slew of graphs that we can look at. I didn't do this last time when Krista was watching, or maybe I did. But
Krista, speaking of Krista, she says, so on the planting side, maybe better for citizens and cities, counties to plant diverse variety of locally native shrubs. Shorter growing time helps restore lost habitat.
I've also read articles that said that hemp grows faster than trees and actually produces more oxygen.
Right, I've heard that too, yeah. So there's a lot of different things that can be doing, like mangroves, that's in certain parts of the world, growing those back into areas can help reestablish coastal areas so that it helps with the soil loss. And so this under regular graphs, you can look under impacts. And so with impacts, we can see, like, let's look at, what we've done so far, the 2.3, let's see, species. You see that if we didn't do anything, we had kept at the baseline, 50% of species have lost, would lose more than 50% of their climatic range. And with what we've done so far, that 2.3, we're keeping it at 28 for, you know, invertebrates. Yeah, so, you know, it helps, think of that 1.5, you know, we go to impacts, you can look at some of these in here. You could go to, sea level rise, and you can see, you know, we've prevented some sea level rise. We want to get it lower than that. We can also, if you wanted to look at some place, you could look at, type in any place in the, I don't know why it's taking a while to load, but you can type in any place in the world and see,
Where the sea level rise.
yeah, I don't know if Vietnam is a place like that. So this blue is land at risk. This green, you can kind of see behind there, that's been saved by the actions we've taken already. So, but let's not stop, we're only at 2.3. We've done, Sam said carbon price. The people that are CCL people in the room, the three of us, we like that, because that's a major, push that CCL has. And carbon price means what it sounds like, you put a tax on carbon.
Right.
And Canada,
Those industries that are emitting so much pound per will get taxed
Right.
higher.
yeah,
But so, I think that that's just a way of double counting. Because if you put a carbon price on, and as a result, companies switch from coal to renewables, you're counting it in the coal versus renewables area, and then also in the carbon price.
that's a good question. There might be some overlapping of some of this. This says discourage or encouraging, mining coal and burning it in power plants. So some of it could be just not, discouraging, not giving subsidies for, plants being built. Like right now, one of the big, things that, people in the climate movement are working on are these liquid, natural gas. They're gonna, on the, Gulf of Mexico and Louisiana area, they're, going to have all these ports, or they're in, process of approving the development of these, LNG, ports that would allow the transportation of liquid natural gas all over the United States. Well, this is a huge, step backwards, you know. So if we can cut that out, that might be something that would be in this natural gas thing, not allowing that to happen, making it so prohibitive that they can't do that. The carbon price is actually one of the, let me get that back to here and you can see, this shows, this is one of the reasons it went down from 3.6 to 3.3 is that 20% of countries now have a carbon tax. And so it's made that effect. What they did, what they've done is, I think that the price is about $20 a ton of CO2. And so what they did was they averaged it out and counted it, and that's how they got to 0.3 degrees less.
Are those 20%? Are they, do they have rebates or?
I'm not sure if they all have rebates. Canada does for sure. I don't know. I think that this is just counting the carbon price. But the rebate means that one of the impacts would be that energy would cost more if you put a carbon price on it. So goods would cost more. So Canada they have a rebate. So the government collects the tax and then they distribute it to the citizens. So the idea is that poor people or that would struggle to pay would have that dividend, and people that are usually that are wealthier probably using more energy. And so they would get the same amount as everybody else, and so they would end up paying more.
So when you say 20% of countries have this, I'm sorry that I sound so argumentative.
No,
But
it's okay, you're a lawyer, right?
I am,
Yeah,
yeah. So, would a country the size of Burma count as much as a country the size of the United States?
in this particular situation, what they've done is they've figured out, they've factored in the size.
Okay,
So I'm not sure exactly. I'd like to find, maybe they have it somewhere, which countries are already. I don't think they've listed.
well, because I think it's more likely to be the large developed countries than places like Burma and the Congo.
Right,
You know,
yeah. That would be an interesting question, who already has the tax? But let's go back to moving that
because
tax
that goes
slider.
to like what the impact would
Yeah.
be. If it's a small country and they have the tax, it's not gonna lower the temperature.
Right, that's true.
Whoa.
So carbon price, yeah,
That's your
Yes.
house, they just.
here, let's get this back to the default. Okay, so you can see if we, put a high price on carbon, that could make a big difference. And we haven't even looked at things that are included in the Inflation Reduction Act, which are, trying to be more efficient with the energy that we do use, like putting heat pumps in, that would be covered there. So if we can, move that over to reflect, trying to be more energy efficient. And then a big push in the Inflation Reduction Act is, money for electrifying businesses and industries and homes.
And home.
So, and there's rebates involved, we can talk about all that too. And then I think it's important, I think it's important that we look at deforestation because, that is something that we're doing now, is we're really focused on, trying to protect the Amazon, other big, forests that are carbon sinks that we don't want to, become, to lose that ability. They get to a tipping point where they actually, start working in the opposite way. So, I don't know, I'm not explaining that well. So if we were able to reduce deforestation, which we, with the new, change in president in Brazil, they have reduced deforestation. It's still happening, but it has been reduced. I think it's like 20% or so. And we didn't subsidize renewables. If we took that 8 trillion that we spend on fossil fuels,
Yeah,
and we actually, made, money available for people to use, renewables or,
or communities.
communities, right? So that gets us to 1.5. So, what we want to look at this is to see that there are a lot of solutions out there. The problem is not that there aren't solutions out there. The problem is the political will to, and an individual will to take this on. But Bill McKibben, is the leader in the climate movement, says it's not a silver bullet, it's silver buckshot. We have to look at this on many layers.
Obviously, we
Yeah.
did a lot of.
Yeah, we did a lot of sliders, and that was why this individual that was in my presentation on Thursday was like, oh, there's so much to do. And it can be overwhelming, but one of the things I do for CCL is monitor the social media, and I run the Instagram account. And I think sometimes I do this more for myself, but I seek out all the good news on the climate and I post that. And every day there's something like, there was recently something in New York City where they have a new forestation project. So, that's happening in New York City. I mean, we look at it as a whole global thing, but if we see in these areas, there's also in England, there was like 1 million set aside for rewilding. This is all in just this week. So it's like, okay, remember these are little buckshots here and there, and what we can do. That's, is there anything that anybody wants to ask before I, change, what I'm gonna have my screen on?
Just a comment, I was thinking just positive from this. I think about feedback loops, the idea of feedback loops where in a real bad way, that like the earth is warming, so more trees catch on fire and they contribute more, so there's that feedback, more, carbon in the air. There's that feedback loop. But these, one thing changes for the better and it can affect everything.
Yeah.
Change for the better.
And one of the things, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this in a church setting was because, talking to people in this kind of a setting and talking to your friends, they say that is, so much more effective than hearing it from some scientists on TV or some stranger. And they've done studies that show if, somebody on a block gets, solar panels, that's more likely to influence somebody else getting solar panels than a whole scientific demonstration of why solar panels. So, this is,
Feel good.
yeah, who are you influenced by? Are you influenced by people you know and trust, or are you influenced by politicians or scientists?
I got my solar panels in 2002, and everybody made fun of me. And within 2 years, they were asking for the name of my installer.
Yeah.
Meg was involved in the Sustainable Claremont home tour yesterday and was showing off a friend's home. She works at Pilgrim Place and is really influential, she and Ann Taves, in working with people that are moving in, like Margaret's moving in there, to make changes that will make their home greener. And, that includes, yours is all electric, stove, gas, dryer, heater, heat pumps. So that they're figuring out in Pilgrim Place how to do that in that community. Imagine that. And then they went and talked to the people at the gardens, right? And so now the garden is doing this. And on the home tour, one of the places I went to was, the insulation where they pump in, I don't know, it's not fiberglass, but it's shredded something, but yeah, shredded cellulose. And they said we do all the homes in, Pilgrim Place and, the gardens now. So it's these,
Interesting.
yeah. So what do you all see as next steps? I have some ideas down here, but what do you see? We've been talking a lot about what it is, what, some of the solutions, but what do you see yourselves doing? Or, it can be bigger policy changes if we, we're working towards those, or it could just be something you see as a next step for you.
I think that what I see as one of the biggest problems is what I call get real.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have friends who consider themselves to be environmentalists who've done all the things we've discussed here, or most of them, and they think nothing of getting on an airplane and flying to Mexico or to Mongolia. Or a few years ago, I read that the guy is the head of the Sierra Club has not been on an airplane in 20 years. That when they visit his in-laws in New York, they drive.
That was one of the good news things I saw this week was there's, an airport somewhere, I can't tell you where it is without looking at it, that won't do, it's not gonna allow private jets
Oh,
anymore.
that's great.
Yeah, and I think, there is some, on Instagram and TikTok with these celebrities like, Kylie Jenner, she takes a private jet for things that are 15-minute flights. And some European airports are not, doing any of those short flights, not just private jets, but their jet, they're not using any for like anything that you could drive to within 45 minutes or something. So, you know, those
Drive
are,
your electric car.
yeah, I'm trying to get this, so it won't be it, but we'll figure it out afterwards. So less, air travel, because they do say that air travel is gonna be one of the harder ones to, switch over to a sustainable fuel, because, you know, who wants
I
to take
just-
that first flight, you know?
I don't think that people really appreciate. I mean, I had a conversation with the woman I worked with once about the difference in if you drove a Prius to Phoenix versus the airplane. She goes, you understand there are other people on the airplane?
Yeah.
That's
Oh, no, I thought,
the statistics I'm giving you, take that into account.
yeah, on average, if you did one less air flight a year, it could save 2 tons of carbon. I haven't flown in, about 2.5 years. And I do, you know, I'm not saying I'll never fly, but I do try and, you know, the last time was to go up and see my daughter for some, show she had, you know, I felt like that was something I needed to do, but, you know, I do, participate in a monthly subscription program where I offset my carbon, where I pay, they've, you know, taken a test to figure out what my average carbon footprint is, and I pay, for me, it's $35 a month. Because I told them I only did one air flight a year. I'm really doing less than that, but, you know, and that's not perfect. Carbon offsets are not perfect, but I figure they give me a report about where they're planting trees, where they're doing this project and stuff. So I figure, you know, that's just one way that I might be kind of justifying it.
I read a chilling interview with the head of United, in which he said, you know, with the carbon offsets, when people get on the planes and what they're buying, there's not enough land on planet Earth for us to plant those trees,
Right,
and you're not gonna let
exactly.
us come to your yard.
Mhm.
And then they gave examples of things they've done, like there was some private hunting club in the Northeast that had applied, you
Yeah.
know, and they weren't gonna cut down their trees.
Right,
I mean, it was just a boondoggle. It's like, I feel like you can't sort of buy your way
Right.
out of this. You have to change your behavior.
yeah. A lot of people say, especially when it's big business that's trying to, just, you know, pollute as they've been doing and buy carbon offsets, that's meaningless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were planting trees in Africa on land that people had been growing crops on so they could live.
Mm-hmm,
You know, it's just,
right, yeah. Okay, so that was 30 minutes when that went off on time. It's only like 5 minutes left. Okay, so I'm gonna skip to some of the things that the UN suggests we do. So, and please chime in if you have something that you can, you know, add to this or think of. But, you know, they save energy at home, you know, find out where your energy comes from. If you live in Claremont, we have the Clean Power Alliance, and we are one of the, cities that went ahead and made, using 100% renewable as the default. So people actually have to go in and change it. And originally, I think it was at 50% you were, paying, but I think it's Irvine and Claremont has done that. That's a really, progressive thing, I think that Claremont did.
I don't wanna bum you out, but one of my friends buys and sells, he works for Clean Power Alliance, and he buys and sells the energy. And he said that if you have a little bit of clean power in there, they'll count it as totally clean power.
That does, I mean,
Yeah, and so there are times of day when you just can't get totally clean power.
but are they taking the money that we're paying to invest in,
That's what he told
To
me.
buy the solar.
I hope so, because I feel like that would be, yeah. So electrifying your home, we talked about that a little bit. there is if you go to Rewiring America, you can see what incentives you might, be able to get from the Inflation Reduction Act to maybe get an induction stove, electric stove, a heat pump. Heat pump does both, air conditioning, air cooling, and heating. You know, if you exchange a, dryer, a gas dryer, and things like that. A hybrid or electric vehicle, obviously electric is better than hybrid. I kind of am hoping that one of the results of, this problem on the 10 freeway is more people try public transportation and like it enough that they stay with it. And have some good come out of all that.
They interviewed some people today, and a couple of the people acknowledged that they drove to a Metrolink lot, and then got on the train, you know what I mean?
Right.
And acknowledged that they enjoyed the experience.
That would be great if there was some impact, and also, you know, the whole, can we stay home some of the time? Some of the charts, if I went and pulled them up again, there's a dip for, the pandemic. We went down 7% in energy use. And a lot of that was staying at home, we talked about cutting back on flying, the reduce, reuse, repair, recycle. There's buy nothing groups here in Claremont. Margaret has been sharing with me that in Laverne, she's gotten, you know, put a lot of the stuff that she's not keeping in the move, being picked up like that. So,
They're great, financing is fabulous.
yes,
I think Nora and Carrie Galloway and I are like
Yeah.
going to each other.
it's just a real
We're the
helpful,
unofficial financing.
it's a helpful way to, you know, reduce that consumption. We don't have to buy something that's already out there that somebody else, is no longer using. Eat more plant-based meals. This can have a huge impact. If we can cut back on that as much as possible. Reducing food waste. This is, cutting back on the methane, and California starting the statewide composting being,
They take it out, I'm forgetting the name of the city, and they compost it at 375 degrees, killing all of the healthy bacteria. So in the words of the guy who runs Sustainable Claremont, it's more of a food additive, I mean, more of a soil additive at that point. So at least it's not going into the landfill.
Now,
But
the city manager's letter just did a whole thing about how it's aerated, oxygenated.
maybe they've
compost.
changed. I hope they have changed. I mean, I take my stuff to Sustainable Claremont.
Yeah, we keep ours in our own yard,
Yeah,
and that's what
they're great.
is, you know, most important is that it actually goes back into the soil, because if it's just sitting in a pile, you will be reducing, you're releasing methane.
Yeah.
We're now at church, we have buckets to put our food waste in.
Well, in restaurants, everybody's supposed to be doing it. Plant native plants, a big one is looking at how we are spending our money. And some of it is just, you know, cut down on our own consumption, but who's producing the food we eat? Are we buying organic and buying food that uses natural resources? You know, what banks are we using? The 5 big ones, Citi, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and
Which are the good banks to use?
credit unions are the best, because they don't, these guys all heavily invest in, fossil fuel. And also the insurance companies, they're heavily investing, the big insurance companies like State Farm, all the ones that are actually pulling out of, you know, State Farm won't, insure homeowners, no, because of extreme climate events, they're losing money, but they're actually investing in the companies that are producing the problem. So it's, I've written them, and it doesn't seem to change their practice, surprisingly. I expressed one thing.
You know, you don't have to go to an insurance company that is profit motivated. I'm with Amika, and that's only because my ex-husband is an insurance bad faith lawyer.
Mhm.
And the William Amika is a mutual insurance company, so you're all insuring each other.
How do you spell that?
AMICA. And the thing that's most amazing about them is they pay their claims.
No? Well, that was.
Yeah.
Sure.
Makes them different from the other companies.
And then your pension, you know, where's your pension? There's a Senate bill right now in the state of California that will be up for, a vote for, whether it will, make CalSTRS and CalPERS, the, two largest public pensions in the United States, stop, investing in fossil fuels. They would have to, they would have to, start divesting right away. Yeah.
See where that will make a lot of people angry.
Yeah, it's Senate Bill,
Yeah.
252, I believe, so. And then we talked about this, you know, speak up, talk to people about it, and then volunteer. I wanted to just, you know, I don't want it to keep us beyond 8, which I already have 8:02, but I'm blaming Brian, because he
Sure.
really didn't make it clear that that was.
Started late and then I
30-minute
prayed.
warrant. One of the things that Bill McKibben says also is, you know, when people ask him, can you do one thing? What's the one thing I can do? You know, there isn't one thing that will solve the climate crisis, but he says, join something, join a group. So you have a focus together, you have a community that will help you. And, you know, the 3 of us are involved in Citizens Climate Lobby. It meets at Pilgrim Place. You know, it's actually lobbies, legislatures about climate policy, and we're working on price on carbon, healthy forest, electrification, and permitting reform are the 4 areas of
What was
focus.
looking for?
Permitting reform, because if we don't get the permitting process, we won't be able to do all these things
No.
that are in the Inflation Reduction Act. We won't be able to have the charging stations for cars and the electrical lines to bring wind from Wyoming or wherever. ThirdAct.org is focused on 60-year-old and up, and they work on climate change and democracy and social justice issues. 350 is also founded by Bill McKibben, and it's focused on climate and for any age. Fossil-free California is very focused on legislation that will cut the use of fossil fuels in California in particular. Sustainable Claremont, we've mentioned before, you know, something local that focus, you know, Sustainable Claremont's wonderful. They do things in this area. Some places for like donating, you know, I just threw some out that I'm familiar with: Nature Conservancy, Wildlands Conservancy, Ocean Conservancy. So that was meant to be more of a discussion there, where you guys shared some more of your ideas, but I don't know if there was anybody on the chat that wanted to chime in. and kind of rolled through that pretty quickly. So I'm gonna stop sharing so you can see people's faces.
Maybe if you wanted to create that as, save it as a PDF and send it to me.
I can, I'll clean it up a little bit.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, I appreciate being able to do this over the 3 months. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions from those online? Yeah, Penelope, go ahead.
Can you hear me or am I mute?
Nope, we can hear you.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Isn't she now?
Now you're muted.
Now if you unmute.
There.
Okay.
Okay. I'm glad, I'm so proud of Julie. She just does a terrific job. Thank you. I'm a fellow member at CCL, and we're just aware of the planting program, the urban tree planting program in Pomona, and are planning to do some planting with them as volunteers on December the 2nd, in case anybody wants to join us at that time.
I can include that in the PDF I send you. I'll find out that information.
But I say something real quick about the trees.
Here I am.
We had said that it's not necessarily, it doesn't change a lot, right, according to NRES, but it does make a difference in, climate equity.
Yeah.
These trees are gonna be planted in Pomona, and there's a tremendous, temperature difference in neighborhoods.
Mhm.
Yeah, trees do that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is important.
And the message shouldn't be, don't plant trees, from that, it didn't make a huge difference, it's just, that can't be our climate policy.
Right. I also think that it's a very visible, and yes, it takes a while for trees to grow, however, you plant a hatch and they're very visible and immediate. So what Julie and I were talking about is inviting her back to do something with the confirmation class of our youth in the winter and spring. Because I think that what it can do for our youth is inspire. It's something that they can visibly and immediately see, and it'll inspire them to think about other things they can do. When we talk about carbon, I mean, I'm 41, and we talk about this carbon emission, it seems ethereal to me, like, what? Okay. I mean, I can grasp the idea, but I can only imagine that a 12, 13, 14-year-old would say, whatever. It's hard to understand that,
Yeah.
but to give them something that's the inspiration and motivation, so.
Well, 12 and 15-year-olds are scared, I think, and so this is an action that.
Well, I think that they're, yeah, and the fatalistic outlook on it is that. Yeah.
For fossil fuel and microplastic.
Mm.
It's like lead in previous generation of that stuff.
That's
You know,
it.
that-
Lead in the water.
We have microplastic in our body.
That's one of the things we didn't talk about was, screening your laundry water for
Right,
polyester.
you can have like a guppy bag and,
Well, I used guppy bags, I didn't find them as effective. I now actually have this thing, and the water from my washing machine comes into it, and then it comes down through this bag that I have to periodically clean
I
out.
would like to know about that, I could include it in the resources.
Are you talking about something that gets pulled into the water that is rinsing out your clothes in the wash and then goes into the sewer system and?
Right, well,
Okay.
it doesn't go in, so here's my washing machine, and the water exits. It goes up into a cupboard above my washing machine, where there's a thing this big that has a filter in it. So the water, fills up that filter, and then it goes blah, 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 blah. And it goes out, and then, depending on how much laundry is being done at my house, at some point, I have to pry off the top and take out the filter thing, and it's really cute when you buy one of these, they include a warning, do not just dump this in your sink.
Yeah.
But what it's doing,
I did it.
what it's correcting though is these pollutants that are being pulled out of your laundry water that's being put into
When
the
you
sewer.
wash
and into
polyester, it sheds,
Right,
bottom
the things I
line.
don't know.
Berlin did this thing where they put up some kind of netting and all their water went through it, and they discovered that their number one source of microplastics pollution was
Oh,
polyester.
so buying less polyester or no polyester would be the
Right.
key. Then after that is something like this, but also washing it in cold water, reduces the amount of shedding. So there are things to do, but the less,
Don't wash it when it doesn't need it, don't wash it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's something that, because I'm lazy, that I'm really good at, like well, when we started when they wanted us to save water, I was like, why are we washing things that aren't dirty? It's got a spot, take a wash,
Right,
washcloth,
yeah.
wipe that off. Then put on your jeans and go to the store.
Oprah washes her sheets every day. I'm like, what? We don't understand
That's what I'll
that.
take a look.
I haven't
So-
washed my sheets in
You're still
years.
recording.
Yeah.
They
It's
don't
gonna come back
smell,
to me.
it's
Um,
not an issue.
Some of the other things that are on the chat, Krista says, hoping you can repeat the series soon and often. And Sam, thanks Julie, very informative. It would be great to get your list of resources. I will include that. I'll also include the link for the simulator in case it's free.
Oh, yeah.
You could sit down for Thanksgiving dinner. You could go.
There you go.
Friends and family.
So much fun.
You know,
Yeah.
but there are also, if you know teachers, this is a great resource for teachers. They also have a simulation that they've scripted for you that's like a mock UN, but it's based on climate, and you can do that with, a group of college age students. And then they also have an assignment, if you are a teacher that doesn't have time to do all that, you could give them an assignment, hand them this assignment, and it walks them through. You come up with a scenario where you can keep this at 1.5 and then be ready to share it with your class. So I'll include that all in what I send to you. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you all. Before you leave, I need to make mention as part of my call here at Claremont Presbyterian. December 3rd at 8:45 in the sanctuary, Jerry Damasi, our Minister for Music and Choir, is going to do a preview of the Christmas musical performance stuff. So he's going to play some on the organ. He'll talk about what it means, the part of the story. But Jerry he really is fabulous at doing this. We have so many good musicians.
What day?
Sunday, December 3rd,
Okay.
And
first
that's
Sunday.
during service or? after?
It's before.
Oh,
So at 8:45 and 10 a.m. service, you can come for the class, and then if you need to leave, you can. If you have another worshiping space that you go to. But yeah, that's our next thing coming up. And then just to kind of whet your appetites, Adult Ed is looking at a two-parter in January, February, on the aging and staging, with one angle that we've kind of named caring for very aging and staging adults. So looking at what does hospice look like? When does hospice come around? What does that mean? And so that's touched my life in the last 6 months, and in a very direct way. So a lot of people are looking at that being a part of their life sooner than we think. Okay, well, thank you all. Have a great evening. And you can stay and chat in person a little bit, but I'm gonna lock up soon. All right, bye all.
Bye.